Hello, everyone. Welcome to another MGG Live. We got a really interesting one for you tonight. For those of you who normally watch the Retro Bliss Rewind podcast, we are taking a break from that this week, but we will be back next week. Phil was just down visiting his son in Georgia. But we'll be back next week with Eduardo Mello of Upcode Games. Great interview with him and what he's doing now. But today, I wanted to actually something that's been on my mind for a while. A couple weeks ago, Brian's Man Cave posted some videos, and then there was a follow-up video recently from Gen X Gamer that really got me thinking. Let's take this opportunity to look at how homebrew works. How is there money to be made? What's the deal with ROM sales and all that? And I really wanted an outside opinion and somebody who's actually been pretty vocal in the comments of some of these videos. Most of you guys may know he is a homebrew NES developer, and he also has a YouTube channel here on YouTube. But it is John the RetroBro. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
No problem. Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen here and just point out I've got links to all three RetroBro, Gen X Gamer, and Brian's Man Cave in the description here. But the four videos I'm talking about from Brian are the good and bad of the Intellivision Sprint, the great video game ROM dilemma, should digital ROMs cost the same as physical games, and is there profit in retro gaming? And they're all from his perspective as a programmer for the Intellivision. He's published a lot of games for the television. And then it was 2 days ago, Gen X Gamer, who I know probably a lot of you guys don't watch, but you really should. At least the ones where he's talking about homebrew, because he's a business analyst. And this one right here, Intellivision and Atari homebrewers, please stop losing money. He wants homebrewers to make money, and I think we all agree.
Agree more.
Yeah, well, and I think the community the community has to understand, and publishers have to understand that homebrewers making money means we get more and better homebrew, hopefully.
See my wife
John's
upstairs.
In a musical house.
Yeah. Yes. I was telling Mike before the stream, I'm like, usually when I stream on my computer, I have OBS settings, so none of the background noise is picked up. But no, those were really good videos. I watched all of them. I think the first one that Brian's Man Cave did. Hold on one second. No, the Brian's Man Cave one, I watched all of them. Gen X's was good. So just I've been in the NES homebrew development scene now for probably about 3 years, and I wasn't really familiar with any other homebrew scene. So foolishly I kind of thought they were all the same. But I have a lot of friends that are into the Intellivision homebrew community, and I know Cyrus, he was a good friend of mine. Him and I have kind of talked about it, and he's said a few things that I just thought were so much different. And even the one publisher I worked with on my first game, he's done, I think, boxes and publishing for Intellivision stuff.
Okay.
His name's Frank. So I don't know if anyone's too familiar with him, but he's done Atari, he's done Intellivision, he's done NES, obviously. But to go to your question of I guess your title is there money in the homebrew scene?
Yeah.
I think you have to kind of. I think you kind of have to define well, what kind of profit is there? Are we saying that this can be a full-time gig, or is this well, is there just enough left on the bone that maybe the developers can treat themselves? Or so I think it's important that we kind of start there and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, there's one publisher I know of for Intellivision that does it as his full-time job, and that's William.
Wow.
That's
okay.
Electronite. But I wouldn't say it's like a really good living by any stretch. And he's been doing it since 2012. What's interesting to me is the comments that you've made, like just the huge difference between how television homebrew seems to evolve and how NES homebrew seemed to evolve. Obviously, it's a much bigger market for NES, but also like emulation for NES. Like 25 years ago, I was emulating NES when I was in
Oh
college.
yeah, Nesticle.
Yes, yeah. I used Nesticle, but with Intellivision, there's really only one emulator. There are multiple emulators, but there's one emulator that's like the king of them, and that's JZI and TV. But even then, and all emulators, you have to get your own exec file. You have to get your own GROM. You have to put those in. If you want to play ECS games, you got to get the ECS file. And then it's a header-based emulator. So it's not like Stella or Nesticle or whatever, where you just open up the software, open up your ROM and play. Whereas, and so what the big development for Intellivision homebrew, there's always been ROMs out there of people just making something. But it was very console based. Whereas I know way back then, and it was mostly hacks 25 years ago, but NES started very ROM based, very digital based. And so now that the Intellivision Sprint has come out and it uses JZI and TV, it's compatible with everything. And it's
that was my question. Is it because I know Intellivision uses different mappers and ROM chips, so is it compatible with all current mappers that are out there?
JZI and TV is the emulator. It's the only one compatible with JLP. JLP is the big thing because that came around, if I'm not mistaken, 2019. And it allowed you to save to the cartridge. It allowed you to have more memory, bank switching, like several other things. Nothing that couldn't have been done back in the day, but just something that had never been done. And so now that the Sprint is out and it is compatible with everything and it's easy to use, you know, obviously if you want to get more involved and do your custom art and all that stuff, that's another thing. But you throw a ROM on a USB key, it'll play, or a bin and config. It's kind of forcing the Intellivision homebrew scene to cross a bridge that I think most other homebrew scenes have already crossed. And that's the whole ROM question. And how do we be profitable with ROMs when we are a homebrew scene built on physical?
Here's how I look at that, right? So the NES community, Genesis community, it's all built on physical. All of it is. It starts there. Otherwise, people would just make games in Godot or Unity and make 2D games and put them on there, and they put them on Steam and sell, you know, the Windows files and put them on storefront. So it always starts, regardless of the community. I think it starts with the consoles. I think where the Intellivision community struggles, what they struggle to see is the, like you said, the profitability of the ROM and the distribution of that and how much of a good thing it actually is. Because when you, again, NES, Genesis, a lot of these people, I would say a good majority of people who still want to play these games are emulating. There's still a lot of games that I back on Kickstarter that are like, oh, I just went to digital. I'll put it in my emulator. And I want to support the creator. Yeah.
There's tiers of games. Yeah,
exactly. And one of the things I've noticed, and I don't know where the stumbling or that block sort of starts within Intellivision, but from my perspective, you know, outside looking in, so for NES homebrew devs, all of the developers basically have the rights to their games. Like all the small devs like myself, Artix, Panzer, or he goes by Panzer. I forget the name of his.
Namath, David Namath, or something like that.
Dave, yeah. Pixel something. Pixelcraft, that's it.
I have the first 3 Panzers.
Yeah. They're so good.
To do them on the channel.
They're great. So all of the developers have rights to their games. And I learned recently, I think it was you and Casey might have been talking about it, that in television, it's kind of different. The publishers own the rights and then hire the coders and programmers.
Yeah.
So
So how that, I mean, there are people who publish their own games. Harvey Decline, it comes to mind. He's the one that did Amigo Cornhole. Pardon me. But they're usually in very small batch. So really, you've got 4 major publishers, and if you follow these 4 publishers, Intellivision Revolution, Intellivision Collector, Electronite, and Homebrew Inc., you're aware of 90% of what's physically released. And yeah, they not always, but usually they will either commission a programmer to make a ROM, or they will buy the rights to a ROM from a programmer who's already made a game. And then they own that game. In some cases, like I know in Intellivision Revolution, some of the games that he's published with Brian's Man Cave, you can get the digital versions from Brian Man Cave's site, but Rev has the physical rights. So there is a bit of a balance there.
I mean, I will tell you this, like someone said in the comments, is anybody making a living with retro games? I was talking to one of the other developers. I think I was talking to Joe Granato, who made NES Maker, which is the software I use. And I said, if I wanted to be rich, I wouldn't make NES games, So, yeah. But having said that, like my most recent game that's up on Kickstarter now, there's a digital tier, and I have 70 digital backers for a $12 digital tier. That's basically, I send them the ROM and the PDF file of the game, and then from there the game goes on it. So right off the bat, I mean, would I be profitable? It's hard to say. I mean, I have to pay a sound guy, I have to pay an artist.
Yeah.
So would I be profitable just with that? Probably not. But it opens the door, because a lot of times what I've seen is people will buy digital and then they go, I really like this, I have a Nintendo, I'm going to get the physical somewhere. So I think the ROM is a good entry point if you give them that access, because $60 plus on an unknown developer, on an unknown game, a homebrew, it's a big ask for a lot of people that might be newer to the scene. So I think making ROMs available just broadens the horizon of your potential audience.
I would agree, specifically with a community like Homebrew. Like, we're seeing, honestly, I am the most positive about Intellivision Homebrew that I've ever been since a sprint came out. Interest has gone way up. A lot of people that I've talked to are interested in buying Oscar TG's programming book, like how to program an Inti Basic to make their games. There's a lot of potential here to broaden that community, because the community has always been a very tight, it's a very strong one, but a very tight one, and a pretty small one. And so if somebody was releasing a physical version of the game, they could expect to sell between 100 and 150 copies. But that's at 60, 70, $75 a pop, as opposed to if you sell the physical copies to that core community that definitely wants their physical. And I'm part of that community, but I can't afford to buy them all. But there are some games that I would absolutely buy the ROM for $15, $20. And Intellivision Revolution, who actually commented here, he did say that Brian's Man Cave, he keeps the game ROM rights. So he keeps the rights to his games. Intellivision Revolution just pays to be able to publish them physically. But Intellivision Revolution has actually started selling for the Sprint little Sprint keys in a case with the overlays and a mini manual. So you can still have kind of a physical, and I think they're about $20 each, as opposed to $60, $70 for the same game.
Why? So one thing I've noticed too is the NES community in particular is big on Kickstarter. I think Genesis is too. How come that's not a thing for the Intellivision community? I think that would be a big I think that would be huge for some developers and publishers because
I th-
it basically covers your production costs. I know that's why NES developers do it because a production cost on the game I'm making now, it's probably going to be over 10 grand. I can't pull 10 grand out of my butt, and
yeah, not many people
I don't want
can.
to risk that. So a lot of people, independent developers, will do Kickstarter, and however many backers, that's how many we'll make, and it'll fund the production.
I
I'm
know
curious
for a
why that's not the
fact.
case for Intellivision.
I know for a fact we had Guardian Game Studios in here, and he mostly does Game Boy games, and he does the same thing.
Yeah,
He
Game Boy's
will
another one.
he
Yeah.
will do a Kickstarter for each of his games, and even if it just barely makes the thing, he'll even set it low. At least it covers most of the production cost. I think a part of the reason might be Rev's comment here. Intellivision people are a little wary of crowdfunding.
That's fair. That's super fair. It's a fair point.
But
I
I
have seen
have
that in other
seen,
communities as well. Comics, they don't like Kickstarter either.
yeah, I have seen pre-orders though, like William from
Yeah.
Electronite, he'll do pre-orders. But you could probably get a better reach through Kickstarter. I think, like, if it was somebody like William, if it was somebody like Luke from Intellivision Collector, if it was someone like Rev, like a well-known entity who has a long history of publishing games, I think people would be on board. If it was somebody new, like if I said I'm programming a game I'm going to put on Kickstarter, I wouldn't back that.
You almost have to have somebody to kind of set the expectation and start the trend, because like you said, it's going to take people that the community trusts. And I think that's, thankfully for me, as somebody who came into Nest Dev late, there's a lot of trust in that community, because a lot of the stuff on Kickstarter for NES, that stuff's done. Those games have been in development for years. Now you have some exceptions. Like, I don't know if you heard of the game Former Dawn. That's like this huge NES project with a brand new map, or it looks like a Super Nintendo game. It's unbelievable. But I was going to back that game until I found out, like, they basically have an alpha demo with barely anything on it, and they're not as far along. So I mean, I wanted to wait. I wanted to ask you about the piracy thing too, because I know Brian's Man Cave, I think that was one of the things that he really stressed on I think on his second or third video.
And it's a concern here. This is Luke from, he's an Intellivision Collector. So he's got the same kind of concern. Like I said, this is a bridge that so many other homebrew communities have crossed, because because emulation for those systems has been easier in the past. Whereas now we're just crossing it because this is the first time really that Intellivision emulation is super easy.
I think almost, though, if it makes it harder to emulate, then there'd be less people trying to pirate it, because it's like, well, this is hard. I think here's the thing. I think the people who pirate games are kind of just passerbyers. Like, oh, that looks neat, I'll just download it. And then they find out they can't run it, or they don't know how to set up an Intellivision emulator, and then they just go to, well, the hell with it. I think those are your pirates. I think, especially in the Intellivision community, you guys have like a really strong following of people who want to play these games. I think those people are not going to pirate those ROMs. And I'll tell you another thing. If they're worried about, like, well, so-and-so bought it, so he's going to give it to, his friend Jimmy and then his friend John, I don't think from what I've seen, people who purchase a ROM are less inclined to share it with other people because they bought it. Like, hey, I paid for this. Why should I just give this to you? No, you go pay for it,
Well, and you get blacklisted by the community. There is literally no benefit to you to share a ROM that you purchased. I agree with that. And like I said, too, the whole mentality of, if homebrewers don't make money, they won't make homebrews. There is, like, and I'm not being cynical about, like, I know there are people out there, it's like, oh, you should program and publish these for the love of the Intellivision and for the love of, well, yeah, but if there's no benefit, you're spending a lot of money, a lot of effort to do this. Like,
I think so.
There was no money in it. Yeah,
I think there would still be developers making games.
Yeah, but they wouldn't be the big thing.
I think I think you'd be surprised, actually.
Really?
Again, I can only speak for the NES homebrew community. There's been some amazing games that have been released for free, and they're unbelievable. They would rival AAA games of the late
I agree.
generation of the console. I look at it like this. Would I still make games if I didn't make any money? I probably would. I mean, I've released free games. I did a demake of Virtual Cop that uses the light gun, and I can't. It literally I had my sound guy like demake the music, so it's copyright infringement out the butt.
Yeah.
But I can't charge for that. But I really wanted. Virtual Cop's like one of my favorite light gun games ever, and I came across a demake on I think it's on itch a while back, but it's not. It's like it's like maybe like a 16-bit demake, but you can only play it in the browser. I'm like, I wonder if I could do this on the Nintendo. And I already had the engine built for the light gun because I used it for Maverick's Baghdad Extraction, the game I released last year. So I was like, I'm just going to use the same engine. And I worked on it for about a month. And then I released it and it's free. It's got like over 1,000 downloads on itch. And I don't make a dime off that game. But sometimes it's just neat to make something you're really passionate about and put it out there and let people enjoy it. So
I hear you.
I think you'd be surprised. Would I spend a year like I did on my most recent game? Like, if I couldn't make any money and just all the things that I had to go through, I don't know. I probably wouldn't work on those big, long projects. I mean, that's probably for sure. At least there's some reward in this at the end where it's like, hey, I spent the last over a year working on this game, and it's going to come out. Maybe I go buy like new tires for my Jeep or something, So it's not a lot of money,
It's hobby money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe I use that to pay my artist and then my sound for the next game I work on. But yeah, I mean, piracy, I think it's one of those things that you're not going to be able to defeat piracy. It's going to happen. I know some of us look at a badge of honor. Dave's games, his Panzer 3 game is sold on AliExpress, and it won't work if you get it, because I don't think those will support that mapper. So it'll play like absolute crap.
Oh, okay.
So we see it, and we kind of see it, and then we laugh about it. And he's like, "Yeah, I'll take it as a badge of honor." So
I've got my legit copy from the Kickstarter of that one. I beat it over the holidays.
It's a good game.
Here's one that I know you've got an opinion on. Luke's Awakening says it's hard to worry about piracy when you're selling a game of a Nintendo IP. Let's talk a little bit about direct ports, because I know you've got strong opinions on those.
Yeah, one of the things I see a lot in the intellivision hobby, in the homebrew hobby, is a lot of like trademark intellectual property and then being sold. So in the NES community, you talk about being blacklisted. If you do that as an NES homebrew dev, they'll blacklist you. That's kind of like a no-no. Now, what you have seen is a lot of spiritual successors, and that's where I think kind of like where the creativity really comes out. Like, I have an idea. I'm a huge fan of Dark Souls. Like, this is my favorite type of game. Like any modern game, Dark Souls. Okay. I've spent like hundreds of hours playing Elden Ring. I just love the way those games are presented, and I really want to do like almost like not a spiritual successor because it's a Nintendo game, but almost like a what would Dark Souls look like on the Nintendo. So I take kind of like aspects from that, and I say I want to do this because that's like that. But I think to just straight up copy something and selling it, I don't know why developers would do that for the only reason to try and make some quick cash. Like, why do you have to have that name on your game? Can't you call it something else and do something similar and be like, hey, this is what it would exist and be like before it happened, and kind of let it stand on its own 2 feet rather than propping it up on existing intellectual property or copywritten material.
Yeah, I think we were talking a little bit in the green room about this. I think, like, I've got a reputation for being down on ports, and I'm not. The Intellivision community is full of ports. The Atari 2600 community is full of ports. The 7800 community is full of ports. And I think a lot of it they get away with because it's IPs that nobody cares about anymore. And honestly, the amount of money that any lawsuit would get those companies isn't worth the cost of the lawyers. So they kind of, like, I've heard, I cannot substantiate this, but back when Atari Age, before Atari bought Atari Age, 50% of the store was unlicensed ports, including like Star Wars games and stuff like that. Which
Star
is
Wars
like
is owned by Disney though. Now
Disney
that's a
is
bridge
very
I wouldn't try
litigious.
and cross.
Nintendo
So
is
it's
very
Nintendo.
litigious. But I
And they don't care how much money you have. They do not care. If they can shut you down, it's more of a statement to them rather than we don't need your money. I mean, I've seen Nintendo go after people on like, Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they're barely making any money.
But I have heard stories. I cannot say that these are actually true, but that when Al, who used to run Atari Age, kind of still semi does, whenever he'd get a cease and desist, he'd just laugh and rip it up. and nothing would ever come from it because it doesn't cost them anything to send that letter, but to follow up with a lawsuit, it's not worth their time or effort.
So, but how do you guys look at that from a creativity standpoint, though? I mean, to me, it feels like cheap to do that. I mean, because I feel like I could right now, I can make Super Mario Brothers 3, or I can make Sonic on Nintendo. Like it wouldn't.
Yeah.
I would literally just be spending my time stealing assets, and it wouldn't feel like, as somebody who likes to be creative, I would be bored doing that, and I wouldn't like get any enjoyment out of doing that.
That's fair, and that's where it comes to my biggest thing with ports. Again, I like one of my favorite Atari 2600 programmers is Champ Games. They're a publisher now, and they do exclusively ports for the 2600. But they put so much extra into it. If you've never followed anything from Champ Games, go look at my review for Elevator Agent, which is a port of Elevator Action. And it looks almost like you're playing an NES game, but it's on the Atari 2600.
Yeah.
Like a system that was made in 79. Like they just do really cool stuff. And then they usually have their special mode where they add stuff. Like it's an impressive feat. So my position on ROMs, not on ROMs, on ports, is that if you're going to port something, add something to it. Like there has to be a reason to port it. If you're just porting it for the sake of, hey, this game was great on Atari, now I'm going to make it on the Intellivision, that's not worth it to me. Now, one port that I will point out, and I've got it, where is it here? If I share this tab instead, and I go to Intellivision Collector and bring it up. So Intellivision Collector is a great site where you can buy digital versions of all their ROMs. This Montezuma's Revenge is fully licensed. And you can buy it physical or you can buy it as a ROM, which I think is awesome. As well as a lot of the ports.
Yeah, when it's fully licensed, they paid to have those rights. So I mean, obviously, I'm not against the ports at all. I think my biggest issue with
but then we get to this. And this, don't get me wrong, it looks and sounds like the NES Dragon Warrior. It is an incredible feat. But I don't know how much longer he's going to get away with that.
Yeah, and that goes back to my thing. Like, so that was what, $15 for the port of Dragon Quest. I don't know what that is.
Canadian, yeah. So that'd be like,
so I don't know, was that $12
10, 11
US
12,
probably?
Yeah, $12 maybe.
So like, I go back to my question, like, do they just do that and use that name just for brand recognition to sell it? Do they not think that it's going to stand on its own 2 feet if they make something similar?
Possibly not. The really funny thing about Dragon Quest, though, is that Luke did not know that in Japan, Dragon Warrior was Dragon Quest. So, and that the series now is still going and it's called Dragon Quest. So he was like, okay, instead of Dragon Warrior, why don't we call it Dragon Quest? That was from his own thing. He didn't realize he was still, Luke, I understand that. Like, don't get me wrong. I understand that we are pirates, but my argument is that pirates have a code.
But then you can't complain that people are stealing your ROMs. Here's it's the double-edged sword.
But part of the pirate code is you can steal from that. You don't steal from another pirate.
Well, you know who we need? We need the expert pirate in here, Casey, the one looking for all that booty. Was it Casey looking for the booty?
Yes, he's the butt pirate. Oh man, that
was still probably the funniest thing I had seen in a long time.
I have yet to live that down.
You got to do. I love your intros, man. Like that
Thanks.
that intro compilation you did. I watched that
Oh
entire
yeah.
thing because I don't catch all your videos. I try and catch most of them, but I usually watch them for the intros. That was really good.
Yeah,
So
Casey
I enjoyed
insists that
those.
I'm the butt pirate, but we all saw the video. We all saw the video, Casey. um, I do admit, like, I would rather, like, my problem with ports again. Like, I realize I'm a pirate. Like, hey, here's a port right here, and this is a great version of it, but it's Time Pilot, right? They didn't own Time Pilot. They just made Time Pilot. And it's a great version because it's one of the games that works really well with the disc. But I do prefer original games. I want new experiences.
I don't have a problem with the ports. I have just a personal grievance with people making a port that's unlicensed and then charging $60 for it. I think that's just it toes the line of unethical. So
I hear you. I will say that a solid 50% at least of 2600 development, of Coleco development, of honestly Vectrex development, like second gen is, I think, the most rampant with that type of activity. Again, because the properties are not policed the same way as
yeah.
like a third gen Sega or Nintendo property would be. That doesn't make it right.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a reality, and you know, if I was to publish a game, it wouldn't be a port; it would be original. And here's the thing too: like you can make Pac-Man, you can straight up make a Pac-Man game, just change the sprites, change the maze a bit. It's your own game. Nobody's coming after you for it.
Yeah. Well, it's so generic. I mean, there's just the way the game is. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, Pac-Man maybe not the best example, but you could make a Donkey
So
Kong style game. You could make
how
yeah.
the first one I saw was the Intellivision, and it's very impressive. It is
It's very impressive
for that to be running on a television. Is really impressive. But I mean, going back to what Luke says, it's like it's just
You may be
pixel
asking
by
for
pixel.
trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Konami, maybe they're going to be a little more stingent on it now because they're going to be finally releasing a new Castlevania game. But
Yeah, and again, I sincerely doubt Konami cares. Nintendo might. There is one one game that I have, and I'm super glad I have it. It's well, actually, no, I could say what it is. Super Mario Brothers and it looks and sounds like Super Mario Brothers.
yeah, I saw that
It
one.
it plays badly with the like honestly,
I can't
if you
imagine.
grew
Yeah.
up playing it like that, when I play it now, I play it with my OG Hugo gamepad. It makes it so much better. But there is that one, they don't even advertise who published it. They don't
Smart.
advertise where you can get it. Like it's just, oh, it's on
Yeah.
eBay now, pick it up. Because like, and if you have to do that, maybe you should just not make that game.
Or make something that's your own, or make it. Somebody
Yeah.
said, if you made a Mario style game, like what you're saying about Pac-Man, you know, lawsuits would be inbound. Not necessarily. There's a game that's going to be coming out by Matt Hugson, I think his name is. He's a very prominent NES developer, and he's doing a game called Super Sunny World, which is basically a nod to the original Super Mario Brothers. It looks amazing. But even Super Mario Brothers, it's so generic. Unless you're ripping off the sprites and the sound, you get away with it. You'll be fine. And then it gives you your chance to kind of make it unique and original. So,
yeah. And so Rev says, totally different game.
Completely different.
And yeah, it's a damn good version. And Luke's right. I don't want to belate the point too much. I mean, it kind of is what it is, and every publisher / programmer is going to have to decide whether or not they accept the risk that's involved.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. It's just going to be, people are just going to do it until something happens, you know, like actually happens. A DMCA is one thing, but who follows
Yeah.
up on. Nintendo won't send you a DMCA. They'll sue you. There's no, because you're not obligated to send anybody a DMCA. And I think maybe people don't know that. They don't have to send you one. They can just sue you and not even send you one.
Yeah.
So that's not a risk I would ever want to take.
It's not a risk I would take either. I mean, if people want to, that is their prerogative. And it's also everybody's prerogative as to whether or not they want to buy that.
But again, like you said, that's the difference. Like why you had me on here was because like there's so much difference between the different homebrew communities, and that is one like you don't see in NES development. I guess like maybe that's because you don't really want to make an NES version of Sonic, you know, because like Sonic is so good.
I think I've seen one though.
There is one, but as far as like what else could you do? Like, so there's somebody making a Symphony of the Night remake for the I think the Genesis, and that looks really good, but he's not selling it. He's just going to put it out there, let people play it. I think that's the right way to do it, because as soon as you sell it, the spotlight goes on you, you know?
Yeah. I've seen people be forced to take it down, but I haven't seen anybody really being gone after if they just made something that's completely blatant copyright, but put it out there for free.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen that.
Well, I mean, I think Genesis did it to somebody a while back.
Really, for
like
a free
Sonic game? Yeah, it was a while ago. They were making something. Well, you know, the creators of Doom, id Software. You know, one of the first games they tried to make was a PC port for Nintendo. It was Super Mario Brothers 3. Yeah, so they were testing out their scrolling engine that they made, and they made Super Mario Brothers 3 on the PC, and they sent it to Nintendo, thinking like, oh, hey, you know, they're going to give us a deal and we're going to get it on, we're going to publish it and develop it and put it on PC. Nintendo wrote it back, told them to take it down, we're going to sue you. So then they used the engine they made for I can't remember they had a series of side scroller games, but this is years before they made Doom, so it's like the early 90s. But yeah,
interesting. So why don't you give us your perspective as a homebrew developer from like start to finish? What would be your process to get both a digital and a physical released?
So in my view, like digital always comes first. In fact, when I started the Athos game that is on Kickstarter now, which is a Metroidvania, that was started as so NES Maker does a thing called Bite Off. It's a game jam, basically. They do it once a year, and they give you a theme, they tell you to develop a demo or whatever. So I started this game as a demo, and then I was kind of just working on it, and I'm like, you know, maybe I'll just put this out as a ROM. I didn't know if I wanted to do a physical release of it, and just because it's a lot of work to do a Kickstarter and do a physical release. At the time, I just finished wrapping up my last game that was on Kickstarter. So I don't know if I want to do that again. And then as the process went along, we had testers, we had people playing it. They're like, this needs to be on a cartridge. So then I was like, all right, we'll put it on cartridge. But for me, digital always comes first. I'm fine with just putting a ROM out there. I think if it's a good game that's worth selling, I will do a physical. But if it's something that maybe I just want to make because it's fun, like I've made a couple platformers, and then that light gun, the Virtual Cop demake that's free. Those are all free games that I just put on itch. And I did like a Halloween game that took me like a month and a half to make. So quick games. You know, I've thought about going back and finishing them and cleaning them up and putting them on physicals and doing a Kickstarter, but you know, I think in the beginning, if it's a big game that I plan on doing, for me, it's always digital or both.
Okay.
So the game I'm starting development on now, it's going to be that Dark Souls type game I was telling you about. That's going to be obviously a physical at some point, but we always have the digital ROM available. A lot of people like the digital ROM. And then there's an opportunity to put it on Steam. I mean, I don't know how that would work within television games. In the NES dev community, there's a wrapper that you can basically put your game on, and then it wraps it inside an emulator and you can upload it on the Steam. So you're playing it on an emulator. They do the same thing with Switch ports as well. I think there's a couple NES games on the Switch that are just wrapped in an emulator, basically.
And then, so if you were, but do you use itch.io? I know that is really popular in the Game Boy.
Yeah. So yeah, it's huge in the NESDev community. In fact, almost every Kickstarter that I can think of, for NES games, the ROMs after the Kickstarter is finalized, maybe a few months, maybe right away, the ROM is then available on itch to download. And what is the? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, what is the process for, like, does itch take a commission on sales?
They do, but you can set the commission on itch, and you can set it down to like 0.5%, and it doesn't affect your like how you show up in the algorithm. So like, say example, if I put a game on itch and I make it $10 and I say I'm going to give itch 50% of the revenue, which I don't know why anyone would do that, because you don't have to. They're not going to put me higher in the algorithm based on somebody who's only asking or giving itch 1%.
Okay.
So my process is I put it on itch. I give them the smallest percentage I can, because I'm not making much money on a digital ROM. You know, once the Kickstarters are wrapped up and the digital's put out there, you know, you get basically whatever's, because I've paid my sound guy, I've paid my artist at that point anyway. So
yeah, so here I'll share my screen, and this is I'm gonna use Mad Sox Games because they actually give me a plug when I reviewed one of their games here. So like, even if you are not, like, you don't have a website, all you did was program in a television game, you could put it up here, and he's got his store. You could buy all these different games, and I've actually looked at all of these on the channel. You set your price. That's a minimum price. If somebody, if Casey's buying, Casey's a really generous guy. He'll add an extra $10 when he buys his, because you can, like, if I went to buy here, you can add gifts, and then you just get your, like, you got a whole storefront here. You don't have to develop anything. You just have to sign up to itch and give them their 0.1% apparently. But that's a great option, because right now, and I don't mind this, I do like how centralized Intellivision Homebrew seems to be. Like I said, there's like the 4 major ones, and you will get almost everything. There are some outside of that, but if you want the core stuff, you just have to follow 4 guys. Whereas when it comes to NES, I find it's a lot less centralized, which means that you do a search on itch.io for NES games, and you'll find, I think you're saying you found like 150.
Yeah, so if you want to share my screen here,
sure.
I can show you here. So this is my page, because I don't have a website. Websites are expensive to run, and you don't get any. No one's going to see them. I don't know why that's so bright the way it is. So, but if you come up here, let me see if I can find it here. I can go into my library, and we have me and one other developer. He also does YouTube. We created basically an entire database of NES Maker games. So you can go on here. This is every Nintendo game made that we know of so far, made with NES Maker. And you could put these on a flash card. You could put these on, you just play them in your emulator. And I think we're up to 155 right now. So that's another thing the Intellivision community can look at, is just compile these games, and the developers get cuts of these. So like, this is just a list we compiled. So if someone's going through this list and they click on, this one, for example, this is a whatever.
I actually have this one.
And he has one on Kickstarter right now, too. So you buy this, and then the developer gets paid for it.
Yeah, the developer.
So it's a good way to kind of support the community as well. So I don't get anything because I compiled the list. It's just there for the community to look at and see.
So that centralizes it digitally, but physically, I find it very decentralized. Like, I will always hear about a new NES game 2 months after it's been sold out, unless I'm constantly hunting.
So that is where I think the Intellivision community does do it a little bit better. It is easier to find the ones that are available, easier to find through the Intellivision homebrew community scene. For Mike, we basically have Broke Studio and Dalen Games.
Okay.
Dalen Games has published my 2 games, and then Broke Studio, they will do a lot of like Europe because they're in France. So you can go on their website and they have a deal with the developers. So if they sell a game, they get a percentage of that. Beyond those 2, it's kind of you kind of have to do some digging. It can be a little tough.
Yeah. I do want to say a very special. Speaking of Mr. Generous, thank you, Casey, for the 5 gifted memberships. Which one was gifted to Luke, and he says Casey buys everything. He's why there's no Intellivision Sprint content consoles. We just blame it on the Mantis, but it's really Casey.
Are they not on Amazon right now? Did they sell out?
Well, they've been sold out for a while. They have said that they're doing another batch. I don't know when that's coming. It should be soon. In the chat is people who like Casey's in the know. Casey will tell you the second it shows up. He's got notifications set up and everything.
Some of the stuff that's being done on Intellivision is actually really impressive. I was watching a video of that. I think it's called AF2.
Yeah, so it's really funny. Last summer, Willie actually sent me a message on Facebook. He's like, "Do any of my games, do you think they're worthy of a sequel? And if so, do you have any ideas for them?" And I said, well, Anthropomorphic Force, the first one, AF, it ends on a cliffhanger that kind of tied together all the Kai Magazine games. So you could absolutely do a sequel of that, and I gave all different ideas for it. It looks like he's taken a couple of them. I don't know if he's taken all of them, but I'm really looking forward to that one. Oscar Kenneth.
I found, yeah.
No, sir. Oscar Kenneth, he has not produced anything that isn't phenomenal on the system.
So what I found interesting about that was the parallax scrolling. Because
yes,
I mean that's someone was asking about mappers earlier. They asked what a mapper was, and one of the things that different mappers will do is allow you the ability to bank switch, which basically means you're taking data from other parts of the ROM, and you're just going between data to kind of make changes on the fly. And people do that. I mean, that's how it's all done in NES development too, because you only have one background layer. You're just telling the PP in Nintendo, it's the PPU, so it's the picture processing unit, which is basically the graphics card. Like, hey, for this section of the screen, I want you to put these tiles in instead of what's in the existing bank. So you're switching out of that CHR file and into another file that's stored in memory. So I don't know if I don't think original Intellivision games probably didn't have any of that.
No, but at least simulated parallax scrolling has been in several games. The
it's all simulated because you only have one. You only have one background layer. Yeah.
But they've done it. They did it in the first Anthropomorphic Force. I think they actually did it in Space Patrol, which is a port of Moon Patrol. It was one of the first Intellivision homebrews that was published. Yeah. Oh, the console hits Atari today, so yeah, they're back up now.
That's good.
Heard it here first, and they'll be on Amazon in 2 days. So if you want to sprint before the Mantis grabs them all,
I'll tell you what. If there was a more centralized digital place like to get Intellivision ROMs, how we did. I was originally going to buy a Sprint, and then I was like, I'll wait. If there was a centralized place to get those ROMs, I think you'd have more people like me or kind of just, I didn't have an Intellivision. My first console was a Nintendo. Yep. So it's really hard for me to go anything before, what is Nintendo third generation?
Third gen. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's hard to me to go backwards from that point. But then you look at some of the stuff that they're doing and it's like, wow, that looks really good. I would like to play that if I had a Sprint and I could just, load it onto there.
I would. And the other thing with the Sprint too is like, if you don't like those disc controllers, and I understand a lot of people don't.
Yeah, I hate them.
You can plug this in and you can play with that. And I would encourage you, like, here's the Intellivision Revolution store. You just pick the game you want, you pay for it, it goes to your inbox. Intellivision Collector, we showed that. You pick the game you want, goes to your, you get a link to download them. Even Brian's Man Cave, if you want one of his games, this is an original game. I don't consider this a port, even though it's Stratego, but it's a good version of Stratego. Excuse me. Yeah, so I mean, it's not centralized on an itch.io, although I would love to see more independent programmers upload their digital files there. I'd love to have a list. And somebody like Casey would put it together for everybody. A list like you guys put together for the NES. Where you just
that's just NES Maker stuff. That's just NES Maker stuff we did.
Yeah.
The NES homebrew library is much bigger than the original library at this point.
Do you have
especially
a link
for digital?
That list? Yeah, if you put it into the private chat here, I can post it in the comments. But
and these will play I want that in any emulator. And I mean, a lot of them are free. There's some really good ones. I mean, really, really good ones. And those are the ones that I'll buy on itch first, and then I'll go find, okay, who's got the physical of this thing? Where can I get the physical? Dungeons and Doom Nights was that for me. Like when I played Dungeons and Doom Nights, I bought that digitally, and I was like, I have to have a physical of this. So
this Harvey Decline here, he's the guy I was mentioning that he self-publishes, and he's made 2 physically released original games. Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny because, like you were saying, like the NES, it's not very centralized when it comes to physical, but there is a conglomeration, like one place you can go and get a lot of the digital, and it seems to be a little more centralized physically for Intellivision. And like I said, it's new. This whole digital realm is comparatively new. I think Intellivision Collector's been doing it for 2 and a bit years. But just like Intellivision Revolution just started doing it a month or 2 ago. When it comes to you making, so you go through Broke Studios, but I know
that, I go through Dalian.
Oh, sorry, yes. Yeah. Broke Studios, I've purchased from them before. But there's also, in the NES community, you can pay just to have the games built and then sent to you, and then you can sell them on your own too.
Yeah, right? Broke Studio does that. You can buy, if you, depending on the mappers you're using, you can buy the hardware from other hardware developers.
Yeah.
From wherever you might want to get them, and then make them yourself. But it's easier to have a publisher do it. I could in theory have Paul, he owns Dalian Games. I could have him send me everything. I can flash it, do it myself, but that's a nightmare to do. Like just to ship everything out. I don't want to do that. Somebody asked in the chat, what kind of numbers does NES development do? And I mean, I'll tell you, my 2 Kickstarters, the one I had last year, we had 211 backers. The one I have now we're closed on 250. We have a day left, so we'll cross the 250 mark. Panzer 3, which is ones that you and I talked about, he had 300 backers. And then I know Dungeons and Doom Nights, which that's probably the best homebrew game there is on the NES. I think they had it was probably over 500. So they had 1,000 backers. So yeah, I mean, the people that want NES games there's a lot of people out there.
It is a bigger market, admittedly.
It's an easier system to go back to, I feel like. From my experience, just I've met some homebrew developers in NES dev that are like in their early 20s. And I just ask them, like, why NES? Like your first console is probably a Nintendo Wii or something. And they're like, that's just the one I like to go back to, because I don't want to go before that. It's not fun. Yeah. They say those games aren't fun.
Well, I would disagree, but I'm old. I will say though that
Graphics, yes.
one thing that the intellivision community is maybe missing is a service like that, where an independent programmer could contact somebody who publishes
Yeah.
games and just say, "Hey, I want to publish a game. Can I pay you to assemble and like put all the things?" And then we don't really have that. That's not to say that one of these guys wouldn't be willing to do that, but we don't have an express service for that. So if you wanted to do your own game and not go through one of the publishers, it makes it a little different.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hop in and I was starring questions as we go, and we'll get your we'll get your opinion on these. You may or may not know, and I may or may not know. Can you please ask how easy it would be for a developer to update a game, an existing game, in this case, an existing homebrew game, because I know exactly what he's asking for, with a new character? For example, if Casey, wanted a new character added, let's call her Michelle, to a game about mermaids. It's really easy. You just go and you change the sprite.
Yeah, it sounds like a ROM hacking question.
Yeah.
Ironically, I don't know the first thing about ROM hacking. I could program an NES game. Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, I don't. I mean, I'm sure I could figure it out. It'd probably be pretty easy. It's probably easier than coding in 6502. But
yeah, I will admit I kickstarted NES Maker, and I have half made about 4 games since I got it. And I end up hitting a wall, because at some point, if you want to make something beyond the kind of blah, honestly, you do have to go in and code a little bit.
So the best NES Maker devs use NES Maker more of as a file management system, and that's kind of to the point where I've gotten a lot of the NES Maker. Like NES Maker is kind of like Unity. Like you can make a game in Unity and not code anything. Same thing with Godot. You can make a game in those, and you can make PC games, modern games with those, 3D or 2D. You can go in those systems and make a game and not put a single line of code in. That's what NES Maker was intended to be.
Yeah.
But it only does it to a certain degree. So if you like you said, you want to do something beyond what's written into the pre-existing code that's in there, you have to first learn code and then change it. So you have to know what you're looking at. And then to go even beyond that, you need to start writing custom subroutines and custom scripts and then loading them into the system. So, but yeah, I mean, it's tough. Like, I'll be honest with you, when I first started using NES Maker, I was like, this is too hard. I don't want to learn how to do all this. But then I came across some tutorial videos and started learning slowly. I'm like, oh, okay, we'll start here.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of things that confuse me, like stuff with like the non-maskable interface and how the CPU talks to the PPU. There's still a lot of stuff in there that's really hard to do. I would consider myself like a intermediate coder. I'm not perfect by any means, but I've kind of just figured out how to make things work as I go. So
yeah. I will say to this, I have heard the person who constantly says that NES Maker is a color by
numbers. I wish it was color by numbers. I wish it was, and my life would be a lot easier.
It does make it a lot more approachable for somebody to do it. And I have never been upset. Like there was a point in time I remember hearing a publisher of Intellivision. He's like, "Oh, this is a really good game," but I found out he made it in Inti Basic as opposed to programming it in machine code. And I straight up told him, I was like, who cares? If it's a good game, it's a good game. It doesn't matter what tools you use. You can use NES Maker and come up with crap, and you could program an assembly and come out with awesome. It doesn't just automatically make it better.
Armchair Rocker said something about animated tiles. So the people you probably asked just aren't familiar with bank switching, because it's not animated tiles is super easy to do in NES Maker. So NES Maker has a predetermined number of CHR files that it'll call in the name table depending on what screen you're on. So you just have to learn basically how to go in there and bank switch it. It's not difficult at all.
The NES game list that you put there, that's the NES Maker games that you found on itch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's not That's not all NES games on itch. That's NES Maker games on itch. To answer that question. So the next question is also from Tofu. How difficult, in your opinion, is it? And this isn't really what you do, so I'm not sure if you have that answer. To convert a game to a new retro platform. So like converting from one system to another. All the rules, logic, level design, art have been decided. The code needs to change for the platform.
You basically just have to remake everything from the ground up.
Yeah.
So like on here, I'll show, are you familiar with Virtual Cop?
I'm familiar with Virtual Cop. Yep.
So if you want to just click on this, I can put this up here.
So, and Torque, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that a lot.
So basically all I did was just copy the graphics here as best I could in 8-bit. So you go from one to the other. And then I had my sound guy. I sent him like different types of I sent him the tracks because he had actually never played it, and then remade the soundtrack.
I think I watched you play this on stream at one point.
I did. It uses the light gun, so a lot more fun with the light gun. It's really hard with the controller. So yeah, I mean, you basically just have to go through and remake everything. You can't really convert it because the coding is going to be completely different.
Yeah, I think you answered this one before. What's a mapper? It's just different chips and how they different ways of making the same thing.
Yeah, the NES had different ones. So NES used to gatekeep their mappers because back in the 80s and 90s, they would only allow developers. There's way more mappers than what were allowed to be used that Nintendo would approve. That's why you see like in Contra on the Japanese version, you see animated tiles on the trees. And then in the US version, it's all static. So that's because Nintendo Japan allowed different mappers to be used for the Famicom.
Yeah. Anthony says that I was on a forum and one of the Homebrew developers said that the Intellivision Sprint is for pirating. The fact is it can be used for that. Whenever you're in a digital world, it can be used for that. I think the bridge we need to cross is a trust that the people, like for instance, Casey did mention earlier, is like, have you ever downloaded a television show or a song before? Like illegally. I used to, like back in the Napster days, I spent all my time downloading music.
Doing it. Yep.
We're all doing it. You know the reason I don't do it now? Because it is so convenient and easy to do it legally.
Yeah, 100%. Nobody, when I was deployed, so I was deployed in 2005. So this was like, there was no digital media or anything, but Napster and the Kazaa, whatever sites you could use, there were guys on my ship who would sell burned DVDs of movies, and you'd go to them and you pay $3 for, training day or whatever. And they would sell hundreds of them. But now, like you said, you don't have to do that because I could go on my phone on any app or whatever. Like sometimes I'll be sitting in my living room and be like, I want to watch this movie. That's $2. I can pay $2. You know? And I think, like you said, once that's available and ready, making things available digitally kind of deters that piracy.
And making it convenient. I think that's one of the most important part. As long as I don't have to jump through hoops, like I mentioned with both Intellivision Collector and Intellivision Revolution, you click what you want to buy, you go through their cart, you've got an email with with a link, with a download link within minutes. It's done. I don't have to search for it. I don't have to worry, if somebody finds out that I've pirated this, then I'm going to be ostracized from the community and nobody wants to sell to me. I mean, it's just easy. And I love the fact that it's easy.
And it's supporting the developer, and it makes them want to, like when I see, I mean, the games I have on itch, every now and then I'll be looking at my email. It's like, I sold a copy of Desert of the Undead. I'm like, oh, nice. So all that work I did years ago, and it just makes you feel good. And it's like, having that support system.
Absolutely. All right, let's get through this one's a really open-ended question. It depends on the game. I know for a fact that in some Intellivision games that have come out and have actually been quite popular over the years were programmed in like a week.
My record
some of them taking like 2 years.
My record is probably 3 weeks, but it's super buggy still. I haven't gone back and changed a lot. It was kind of like more of an experimental thing for me. The game is playable start to finish. It's super basic. It's just a platformer, and it's got some like quirks. And then I did a sequel to that one this last Halloween where I dove into it a little bit more and started changing collisions and stuff. I wanted to make a turtle shell mechanic, how like Super Mario Brothers has.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And the whole creation of that game was like I wanted to make that mechanic. So then I made a game around it. I made the platformer around it. Like I'll just continue this, and it's free on itch.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the game I'm working on now that I'm finishing up, that's on Kickstarter, that took me over a year to make. So it really just depends.
Yeah.
It also depends on how good of a coder you are, what you're using. Like I wouldn't have been able to make a 3-week game without using NES Maker. Like if I were to code that from the ground up, which I don't know how to do because I've never done it, I could figure it out probably, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
So because I don't have to. So yeah, it really just depends.
And then like I was mentioning Elevator Agent from Champ Games earlier. That was 6 years in the making.
That's crazy.
And you can tell when you did.
There's a couple NES games that are out there that are still kind of lingering that should finally be coming to fruition. And they're unbelievable because there's demos of them and you play. It's like, oh my God, this is unbelievably good.
Yeah. Anthony, this is just more of a comment. I will buy ROMs from the people that publish it. If the Sprint didn't come out, you wouldn't have had my money. So there you go. My rant is over.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people
because it brings in a lot of people new to the hobby too. Like I made a video,
people who were maybe priced out of the hobby.
Yeah,
like I know. Well, I know. Like Off Grid Arcade, Bart. He's got a channel, Off Grid Arcade. He literally has an Off Grid Arcade. He lives out in the middle of nowhere in Texas, in a tiny home, and he has like a 10x10 shed that is his arcade. He has a virtual pinball in there. He's got his computer. And one arcade cabinet, like a main cabinet or something. He had no interest in collecting cartridges. But when he was a kid, he had an Intellivision, and he picked up an Intellivision Sprint. He's been streaming lots of it. He loves it. So there is,
well, look what like
purchasing.
the NES Mini did for the. I'm sure that was huge for the homebrew community, and just to get it in the hands of to get those games in the hands of people again. That who don't want to go buy a Nintendo or people who don't want to go buy an Intellivision. I had an Intellivision a few, maybe 4 or 5 years ago because I was going through the whole, I was, for those that don't know, I was a supporter of the Amico and because it was a new console. It was interesting to me. And, I remember back then I was still talking to Tommy and I told Tommy, I said, I want to go buy an Intellivision. And Cyrus was like, you're not going to like it, dude. Like Cyrus was right. The only game I really played was Astro Smash. I love that game.
Best version of Burger Time is on the Intellivision.
But there's some games that I would go back, like some of these homebrew games that do look really good and they look, next level. And it's like, I would probably play that game. That's NES. Some of these are NES quality games that they're putting out.
Oh, totally. One of my favorites of all time on the Intellivision is the Pandora Incident. It's survival horror in space. It's thematically kind of like Alien, but like you're on this space station. There's alien monster things going around. There's dead people everywhere. It's awesome. And you have to figure out what to do and different things happen. It's really cool. Paul Jesse, is there a more active homebrew community than the 2600? I think the 2600 might be the biggest that I've seen, but NES certainly rivals it. Game Boy surprisingly rivals it.
Game Boy Color is pretty big too.
I think 2600 is probably the best organized, simply because they have that real solid hub in Atari Age.
Well, the thing about Game Boy, is it Game Boy or Game Boy Color? They have that. It's kind of like NES Maker that they have, and that's brought a lot of. I can't think of the name of it, but that's brought a lot of developers in, much like the NES community has. Game Boy Studio, that's it.
Oh yes,
so Game Boy Studio is kind of like NES Maker, so that's really grown that community. The guy who made NES Maker, he's coming up with the next version of NES Maker is going to be called Retro Game Forge. And supposedly, he says this, but so we don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to support Super Nintendo development. And if that happens,
Yes,
that's going to be huge
they've
because
been
there's
talking
not
about
really
this SNES maker for a while.
there's not really a big homebrew scene for Super Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. The black hole of time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Time really does go by. Like I remember there's some nights where I'll want to like when I develop a game, I do a little bit at a time. Sometimes it's super simple stuff. Like today I was making a table for a because your player's going to have different types of weapons you can cycle through. So I needed to make a table for that. So I told myself I'm just going to make that table today. I'm not going to do anything else. That's super simple stuff. But there's other things that sometimes I'm going to do, and I want to code like object collision, and it takes me like a week, and then like that week just becomes a blur. Sometimes I'll be like forget to eat and shit like that. So
Yeah.
It really is a black hole. That's a good way of putting it.
How big would you say the NES homebrew community is? Like, obviously, not everybody's going to buy your game or some like every game, but in general, like how many people would you say do you think are maybe overall interested in NES homebrew? This is just a question.
So when you look at the size, like how big is the community? When you look at the size of like people supporting the developers, I couldn't even put a number on it. It's massive. From a developer standpoint, I mean, you have so many developers where it's to the point where like, you have like tiers of developers, like people who just started using NES Maker and don't know how to code. They make like a little thing they throw on itch, all the way up to guys like Ardix to Pixelcraft, where they're making AAA type games. Or Matt Hugson's another one, the guy doing Super Sunny World. These guys are like unbelievable coders. But there's so many developers in between that set. It's almost like I couldn't put a number on it. As far as like actual games go, there's more digital games in the homebrew library than there is American releases or all releases together for that matter. And then I think physical might be getting to the point where there's just as many physical games released than there was original games. It's really big.
Now, granted, is not as big, not quite as an impressive a feat, but homebrew, even just physical, I think we're about at twice the amount of the original library for Intellivision.
So that's 400, probably 500 games probably, right?
No, that the original system had 125.
I thought it was like 200.
Yeah,
okay.
so we're 250-ish or so, I believe.
For a library that small, that's impressive.
It's and honestly, the homebrew library mops the floor with the original library. It really does.
Well, I like it as an extension of, because you always like consoles go through their lifespan, and you always see like Nintendo black box games versus like Zoda's Revenge, which is one of the last games released on the NES. Like to see how the developers kind of got used to the hardware. Homebrew is like an extension even beyond that. So now you see things that are being done. They're introducing modern mechanics into games. Yeah,
you got decades of game development sensibility that you can then apply, as well as one of the big things for second gen is that memory comparatively is so cheap compared to what it was. So you can do a 64K game, no problem. Back then they were making 4K and 8K games. Yeah.
Original NES games only were limited to 40 kilobytes. That's the thing with like Micro Mages. They're like, we're going to do it in 40 kilobytes. And you see like, even just because the knowledge that they had, how much better of a game that is and how much better that looks than something like the original Mario Brothers. Super impressive.
Absolutely. All right, sir, we've done actually a bit more than our hour, which not a problem for me, but I do want to wrap this up with if you have anything, sir, that you would like to plug or anything that you would like to say, because I know that most of our viewers are from the Intellivision homebrew community. If you want to say some comforting thoughts about ROMs and then plug something, you are welcome to.
ROMs are not the enemy. They will bring in more people to the community, I think. I think the Intellivision community needs to embrace it. You can't defeat the pirates. The people that are going to support the developers and publishers are going to be there to support the digital versions of things. So I linked my itch page. If you want to get my games digitally, there's 5 games on there. 3 of them are free. The most recent one is you'll see the Athos demo on there. That's on Kickstarter right now. That's a Metroidvania. In fact, this is actually the box for it. I got my from Gala Games. Yeah,
I'll bring you up here.
He sent me the prototype. And is this one?
That is cool looking.
This is the gray cartridge here. Let me see if I have a collector's edition. Give me 1 second. I think I might have one.
This is the way.
I don't know where I put the collector's edition. It's around, but the collector's edition has a pink cartridge. Actually, you know what? I have one. Ha! I had to take that out of the Nintendo. So that's the
see-through.
Yeah, we have 8 of these left, and then it comes with the full manual. Just your basic. This is what I love about NES games, man. Like making NES games is being able to make a manual for a game, because I loved manuals as a kid. And then that's on Kickstarter right now. That actually ends in about 40 hours. So we hit our goal. So we funded within the first day. That was nice. So now we're just kind of wrapping everything up, but it'll be available on itch. If you missed a Kickstarter, it'll be available on itch digitally, and then our publisher will have it listed on his website. And actually, let me plug him too, because he's a really good publisher. He's done a lot for the community, especially the NES.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard of David.
He's got basically anything he publishes through Kickstarter, he will have on his website within a few months after they're released. So you can see Frontiers is on there. That was Pixel Craft's most recent game. And then I'll link my Kickstarter to Athos. So it's a Metroidvania. If you're into games, like a lot of people compared it to kind of like a combination of Metroid and Mega Man. So I'll link that as well.
That's a cool combination.
So I'm a really big like space nerd. I just love stuff about space and exploration, that sort of thing. So one night, like a couple of years ago, I was watching this like video of like it's all hypothetical stuff. Like if humanity were to create a ship and go to like another world or whatever and explore this, and that's kind of how this game is. But in the game, it's a very story driven game. So there's a lot of cutscenes, something you didn't see a lot of on NES back in the day. There's story progression within the actual like playing field for the character. You get a demo for this. The demo's out, but humanity basically it's hundreds of years in the future. Humanity destroys their planet, and they need to send they find this planet that looks like it could support life, but humans can't go there because it's too far. So they have to send like an explorer there first. So you play as this AI explorer. You're a synthetic AI named Kyra. You're there basically observing the planet, and this is all in cutscenes in the beginning of the game. So this is all like a very
lore. It's the story. Yeah.
Well, there's story, and there's the cutscenes are very nice. Some people said they're too long, but whatever. I don't care. I like them. I had a fun time making them. So then you're orbiting the planet, and then there's an energy surge. It basically shuts down all your like controls in the ship. So your goal is to basically go explore the planet, see what happens, shut down these energy sources, re-enable your ship, and the kind of story progresses as you go. So it's a lot of fun.
See Rev's comment here.
DMCA incoming. Luke played it. Luke really
gives it
enjoyed
rave reviews.
I've had nothing but positive reviews on it. Some people said it's my best game. I'm partial to all my games, so it's weird when you develop a game. I don't know. There's probably still some developers in here, but you get to a point where you're in game development, and you're so like just in the mode of making the game, you almost lose sight of if it's a good game or not.
Yeah.
So
So
what I do is
it's
I
good
kind
to
of,
hear outside.
yeah, because you really don't know. Like in game development, you'll start doing things and you know what's supposed to happen in the game. So for you, when you develop like a mechanic, it just makes sense to you because you know it's supposed to be there. But then you go and like someone plays the demo and they don't use that mechanic, and you're like, okay, I did something wrong here because they don't even, why aren't they using it? Like, so
Yeah.
then you kind of have to guide the player, and it's game development's tough, man. It's a long process.
All right. Well, I want to thank you very much for being on. This has been a fun conversation. And, you know, even if you don't agree with the opinions, it's always good to hear other opinions and especially from other communities. Because no matter what community you're in, it can be done better. And, you know, we're all doing the same thing. We're all trying to keep these old systems alive that we love with new games. So I did want to say before we head off, links for RetroBro's YouTube channel, Gen X Gamers YouTube channel, and Brian's Man Cave YouTube channel are in the description. Please check them out. I posted in the chat, and I made sure I also brought the comments up with the websites. Go check out the Itch NES list. Check out RetroBro on Itch, and check out his Kickstarter if you're interested in Athos. I don't do anything now. John wants me to in his games. Fair enough. And Super Metroid's one. I agree. It's one of my favorite games of all time too.
I never finished it.
You never finished it, and
No.
you're making your own.
Yeah,
You got some.
I finished Metroid. I finished Metroid, not
Okay,
Super
fair
Metroid.
enough.
I didn't have a Super Nintendo.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, you can emulate now. You can be a pirate like us. Yeah.
Nintendo already
right.
got their. They already got their money. They're not gonna.
They did. They did.
Me playing a stolen copy of Super Metroid.
All right, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. We have Eduardo Mello from Opcode Games. It'll be a Retro Bliss rewind, so Phil will be back. Had a great time, had a great chat. We'll see you next week, guys. Bye.
That was fun. Thanks.